All right, 40K enthusiasts, we are getting our Way of Samhan on. And in this podcast, we're going to take a look at jet bikes and a couple of ideas. I don't want to say the definitive way of how to run jet bikes in 8th edition, but I want to share with you my experiences in running a jet bike heavy list, if we want to go in that direction, Samhan Craft World, or taking from the knowledge of playing, well, essentially jet bikes all the time, some ways that we can incorporate some of those tactics into a hybrid list, meaning your Eldar war host consists of other units, whatever they may be, and you've decided next in your model collection you want to add in a couple of jet bikes. So how can we maximize the tactica and minimize the disappointment? Because there is nothing more disappointing in 40K than acquiring models, painting them up, and then the very, very first time on the tabletop, you just get obliterated with them. Now, certainly there's a learning curve in 40K, and I hope my podcasts are cutting down on that learning curve, and I hope that they are making you a better player than I currently am. I hope you're taking my tactica and making it your own. So I've been playing a jet bike army, essentially the same list, and I'm very proud of this because I've not only refined the list and tactics, but refined the play style. I've been playing essentially the same list since 40K 4th edition. So what is that? 2006, 2007? That's a little frightening just saying that right there. But essentially, and there's no right or wrong way to play Samhan. Certainly in the craft world, they have access to all the aspects and all the techs, but I wanted to do a list that everything was flying. Jet bikes, Vipers, Wave Serpents, Fire Prisms, various things in the Wave Serpents, sometimes Guardians, usually Guardian heavy, because that's the balance of the craft world, but also maybe Fire Dragons or other aspects. Stuff like Morgan Ra and other units that would traditionally be on foot, like Rangers, or say Reapers and stuff like that. Certainly they exist in the craft world. I have intentionally left them out of the list. So everything is very fast, everything is very fluid, and how it works. So the first question with jet bikes, and this is still kind of the same in 40K, although the price in terms of points and battle value has fluctuated, they are still pretty pricey. So if you are going to go jet bike heavy into a list, and you're going to sink a lot of points into that you got to be mindful of the other elements in your list to make sure you have model density. And what I mean by that is enough models on the table, physical models, where you can take enough losses, generate enough volume of dice, and still be able to accomplish your mission goals. Because remember, every turn of 40K, regardless of your power level, you're going to get weaker and weaker and weaker. Your mistakes, or my lack of incompetence in playing an army, actually it's not so much incompetence, it's more battle lust and battle glory, especially with my Cornate Berserkers of Scalathrax list. I know better. I've known better for years not to go for certain targets or go in for Cornate glory. I have to. You can't play Corn and not go for glory. I feel like with Eldar, though, every precious drop of Space Elf Eldar blood versus the Mon K is priceless. So I need to be a lot more conservative. I need to be a lot more aware of what I'm doing. Fluff aside, you're going to take losses every single turn. So you need to make sure you have enough models where a really bad round or two is not going to break your army. This is the challenge with playing small footprint or small model count armies. How do you prevent that? So we're going to look with your ratio of jet bikes to other stuff. You need to adjust that on there. Now the other challenge, and this has been magnifying, this is drawing on my history of playing my Warhost, as the years have gone on with the game, more or less, the 40K gaming table has stayed the standard size. Now, yes, there are times I've gone to the club, and we have a lot of players, and certainly everyone gets to play. That's a philosophy I believe in. You show up to play, you have to play. There have been times I've had to cut my table in half. I mean, literally, we have one table with terrain. We put a marker down the center, and now you and I are playing on a table half the size. It's a vastly different game, and certainly there's no right or wrong size, whatever your kitchen table is, or your gaming table, or your dining room table. That's your 40K table. My dining room table, where I've played a lot of battles on, it's a little deceptive because it's a standard size 40K table, but it's just slightly, a couple of inches bigger, deeper, and taller. So when you kind of eyeball distances and kind of see what's going on, it's a little deceptive on there. That said, the 40K size of the table more or less locked down. What has been increasing in every edition of 40K, unit costs and power level have been coming down. So you're getting less and less stuff, more and more stuff on the table up on Scribd or various sites. If you can get a hold of the 3rd edition 40K rulebook, this is the one with the Black Templars on the front. It's really very, very inspiring. And in there is a 1,500 point Black Templar army. And you look at that and you're like, that's it? It's like 2 tac squads, a speeder, a tank, and like some scouts. It's just crazy. The points have come down so much. What this means for our Jetbike army is the fact if you're going Jetbike heavy, now you're going to be facing more stuff. Your stuff is generally more expensive than your opponent's stuff. But more importantly, the speed is what we want to use. Well, there's not as much space to zip around on the table. We've talked about threat bubbles, and this is up in the archive on my YouTube channel. And underneath this video, there's links that are going to take you to my blog. There's podcasts and articles posted on this idea of threat bubbles. A threat bubble is essentially take a unit on the table, whatever unit, say Space Marines, and take your tape out or your measuring stick and measure its movement. Then add on the maximum range of its weapons. Draw a 360-degree bubble. Anything that enters into that bubble comes under threat of your dice. So with your jet bikes, some games, like where are you going to move? Yeah, okay, I can be on the other side of the table really fast, but my opponent's overlapping threat bubbles will engage my jet bikes. So the second piece to this, before we get to the third piece and talk about upgrades and look there, you need something in tandem that has speed, has mobility, and has firepower to back up the jet bikes, that literally you can punch holes and create these pockets on the gaming table for your jet bikes to slide into. I use Vipers and I use fire prisms for that. You're going to look in your own model collection or what you're going to use. So I like to deploy in the center of the table in my deployment zone. Now, obviously, if there's some terrain that favors line of sight blocking or mission parameters, I'll be a little on the left, I'll be a little on the right. What this means is I can move to the left, my left. I can move to my right, I can move to my center, I can move into your deployment zone. The Vipers and fire prisms will shoot into a unit or two to kind of compress your threat bubbles, if that makes sense. And on one of my articles, it really kind of lays this out with some images and pictures and stuff. You are going to need something to work hand in hand with your jet bikes. We're not talking about other lists where you can just spam out 1 or 2 units, like Necron spam or Tau spam on there. You spam out jet bikes, you're just not going to last. They're too expensive, and you need to create the pockets for maneuverability. On the opposite side, okay, Fritz, I'm not fully ready to go in here with, with a whole jet bike army, but I want to add a unit or a couple of units onto my list. What do you recommend there? This is where I would say start upgrading the jet bikes with the cannons, or you want to look at the scatter lasers. I think scatter is a little bit better personally on there with what you're going to utilize. If I'm running mass jet bikes, I got to keep them cheap. The range and the punch is going to come from other units. So I'm going to create that pocket. I'm then going to swarm in dozens and dozens of jet bikes. So many jet bikes that it makes GW's bottom line very, very happy. They're happy that, well, they're not happy I purchased these kits because it was like 15 years ago. But those of you starting new with the jet bike army, they're very happy. You're just going to like swarm in there and utilize that. But I still need to keep it cheap because I need that critical mass. You add a couple of units. Now the focus changes because your jet bikes, they're going to work as a wolf pack. They're going to work as a group, but they're going to stay back. What you're going to do, they're delayed a turn or two. in their action. So you're going to deploy out your war host. You're going to put back your jet bikes in your deployment zone in the center. Hide them if you can, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. Utilize terrain. Again, this is now going to let you radiate out 1 or 2 turns ahead, game turns ahead. Now you're going to look and see. I'm going to attack the left side or the right side. And you're going to try and attack from range, and you're going to try and attack the weakest units that you can to try and take pressure off the center of the table and what's really going on for your opponent to siphon off some units. This idea that your jet bikes are going to move out and up and engage. And as soon as your opponent, so they're going to move to the left, they're going to move up, they're going to shoot, you're going to kill some Space Marines, you're going to kill some of my cultists, I'm going to get really pissed off, and I'm going to send in my Zerkers. Your jet bikes are then going to fade away. You'll take a couple of losses, right? But you're then going to pull away. You're then going to move away. So the idea is to, with jet bikes in that capacity, to try and physically, my game concentration, you know, there's 40K, you're thinking about your army. When you hit contact, when you move in, this is why the mid-band, the midfield of the deployment zone, of the game table is so important. When you move into there, that is where the focus is. Now, that is where the game is. My attention is right there in the center of the table. We're rolling dice. We're making stuff happen. I've got some tactics. I'm trying to keep my cool and not go for glory on here. I know what the battle plan is. But then your jet bikes, like, they come up the side. They start taking out my scouts. They start taking out my cultists. You start, you know, working on some vehicles and stuff. Maybe you do some damage. Maybe you don't. Part of my attention is now physically taken and placed where those jet bikes are. I can't have them running around dealing damage. There's a difference between jet bikes and Space Marine bikes. When I react to your jet bikes working the flank, you know, I send in one of my Mauler Fiend Space Dogs, or I try to get you at something, you're going to pull away. You're going to just fade away and make me chase you down. If I chase you down, great. That means I'm not going to catch you. Because, again, you're working, now you're moving back to your deployment zone and kind of moving in this circle, if we can visualize that. But that's great, because I pulled off a unit on there. I know that's a lot, but that's kind of the formula. That's kind of the template that I would say to start. Now, the exact numbers and how you're going to utilize them, that's an unknown, because I don't know what level you're playing at. I don't know what other things you have in your war host. But that's kind of the decision tree for going in. Are you going in mass jet bikes? Or are you looking way of Samhan to just add a unit or two? We're going to send some units your way, and you're going to utilize them in the tabletop. That'll give you a really good starting point.